Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances for all those dear people. I think I see Surna Mati also on the call. You're ready, Mati? You can start with prayers if you're ready.
Yes, Prabhuji, I can start.
Sure.
Namaum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Today we'll continue to read from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 7. The Lord begins his tour of South India, from text 146 onwards. Text 146. Being meek and humble, the Brahmana Vasudeva worried that he would become proud after being cured by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 147. To protect the Brahmana, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised him to chant the Hare Krishna mantra incessantly. By doing so, he would never become unnecessarily proud. Text 148. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also advised Vasudeva to preach about Krishna and thus liberate living entities. As a result, Krishna would very soon accept him as his devotee. 149. After instructing the Brahmana Vasudeva in that way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disappeared from that place. Then the two Brahmanas, Kurma and Vasudeva, embraced each other and began to cry, remembering the transcendental qualities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 150. Thus I have described how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reclaimed the leper Vasudeva and so received the name Vasudev Devamrita Prada. 151. Thus, I end my description of beginning of the tour of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his visiting the temple of Kurma and his liberating the leper Brahmana Vasudeva. 152. One who hears these pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great faith will surely soon attain the lotus feet of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 153. I admit that I do not know the beginning or the end of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. However, whatever I have written, I have heard from the mouths of great personalities. 154. O devotees, please do not consider my offenses in this regard. Your lotus feet are my only shelter. 155. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunatha, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Dasa, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Chapter 8. Talks between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Raya. Text 1. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is known as Gauranga, is the ocean of all conclusive knowledge in devotional service. He empowered Sri Ramananda Raya, who may be likened to a cloud of a devotional service. This cloud was filled with the water of all the conclusive purports of devotional service and was empowered by the ocean to spread this water over the sea of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Thus, the ocean of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became filled with the jewels of the knowledge of pure devotional service. Text 2. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Acharya. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 3. According to his previous program, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went forward on his tour and after some days arrived at the place of pilgrimage known as Jiyada Narsimha. Text 4. Upon seeing the deity of Lord Narsimha in the temple, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered his respectful obeisances by falling flat. Then, in ecstatic love, he performed various dances, chanted, and offered prayers. Text 5. All glories to Narsimhadeva. All glories to Narsimhadeva, who is the Lord of Prahlad Maharaj, and like a honeybee, he is always engaged in beholding the lotus-like face of the goddess of fortune. Text 6. Although very ferocious, the lioness is very kind to her cubs. Similarly, although very ferocious to non-devotees like Hiranyakashipu, Lord Narasimhadeva is very, very soft and kind to devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. Text 7. In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited different verses from the Shastra. The priest of Lord Narasimhadeva then brought garlands and the remnants of the Lord's food and offered them to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 8. As usual, a Brahmana offered Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu an invitation. The Lord passed the night in the temple and then commenced his tour again. Text 9. The next morning, in the great ecstasy of love, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started on his tour with no knowledge of proper direction, and he continued the whole day and night. Text 11. When he saw the river Godavari, the Lord remembered the river Yamuna, and when he saw the forest on the banks of the river, he remembered Sri Vrindavan Dama. Text 12. After performing his usual chanting and dancing for some time in this forest, the Lord crossed the river and took his bath on the other bank. Text 13. After bathing in the river, the Lord walked a little distance from the bathing place and engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna. Text 14. At that time, accompanied by the sounds of music, Ramananda Raya came there on a palanquin to take his bath. Text 15. Many Brahmanas following the Vedic principles accompanied Ramananda Raya. According to the Vedic rituals, Ramananda Raya took his bath and offered oblations to his forefathers. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Madhya. Hare Krishna. So, the context here was the previous chapter, chapter 7, which we're ending now, is talking about the South India tour of Lord Chaitanya. So, very brief summary of the section we saw was that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started his South India tour. He went to Alalnath for temple first, which is closer to Jagannath Puri. And then after that, he went from there to continue on the South India tour. And he described that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited a place called Kurma Kshetra, and we met a Kurma Brahmana, as described. And we heard beautiful instructions by Lord Chaitanya to Kurma Brahmana, where he described that you don't have to leave your home. You stay in your household life the way you are. You don't need to change ashram. You don't need to become sannyas or whatever. And you chant holy name nicely at home. And then you read scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and share the message of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam with others like that. So that is one important message we heard, Lord Chaitanya describing the last chapter. And after that, he is described, he went to visit a Vasudeva, who's a leper. That means he got leprosy disease also, he got like that. So, and he met him, and he actually embraced him, and then immediately his leprosy disease went away. So that means he was relieved of his disease and suffering, whatever externally at least. And then so he started to what was described actually is that Vasudeva leper was trying to meet Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he came to near Kurma Brahmana's home, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu already left. But knowing Lord Chaitanya being omniscient, he came back to deliver Vasudeva leper like that. And then he delivered him, disease went away, and he was happy. That is the context where we are in. We'll continue from there. One other thing we discussed last time was wherever Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going throughout the South India like this, two main points were made. One is he's always chanting the holy name, like this, Krishna's holy names like that, number one. Number two, whoever he met, he did not see this guy, this person is qualified, this person is not qualified, he did not see. He just happily gave them Krishna Prema. That's why we call Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Namo Mahavadanyaya. The mantra we chant, Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratisha Namaha. Namo Mahavadana means most magnificent incarnation. Krishna Prema Padati. He gives Krishna's love, Krishna Prema. Prema for Krishna freely. And then he is none other than Krishna himself. Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratisha Namaha. Is not different from Lord Krishna himself, like that. So that's the prayer we offer. So he was everybody who sees him, they become pure devotee. Not only they become pure devotee, wherever they go, they make other devotees pure also again. And not only they become devotees, they will make other devotees, like that. That's how he was spreading Vaishnavism throughout the South India, wherever he traveled, like that. That's the main section we saw in this chapter now. Now this chapter is ending the pastime of Vasudeva. So we are in 146 verse. Oh, let me share my screen again. So we'll go to the previous chapter. Okay, go to 146 first. So the moment that Vasudeva see the Vaishnava qualities, this Vasudeva Brahmana, after he was relieved from leprosy disease, he felt so grateful to a Supreme Lord. And last week we discussed about how gratitude is a very important quality for practicing devotees like us also, and that helps us to develop the seed of love. So gratitude is very important. So he was very happy to receive Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And we discussed how he saw that everybody else, they didn't even come close to this Vasudeva Vipra, because he had leprosy disease and he has bad smell coming from his body. Whereas Lord Chaitanya personally came, touched him, embraced him, like that. So he was feeling grateful, like that. Similarly, when we cultivate gratitude, we can see if somebody is doing little bit beyond their way, we can see that, we can sense that, and we can feel grateful for that. If we don't have gratitude, we'll think, oh, what did he do? Great thing. Everybody is supposed to do like that for me. Like that we'll think. But otherwise, when we have some gratitude in the heart, then we can see everything that others are doing is out of their way and doing a messy favor for us, like that we'll see. That's important quality to cultivate. That will help us to develop satisfaction, that will help us to develop humility, that will help us to be in the service mood for others. Because when we are able to feel gratitude like that for everything everybody is doing, then naturally is not just feeling a nice feeling we have. We also want to reciprocate. We also want to serve. So when we see everything everybody is doing as a service to us, then we feel like serving everybody nicely, like that. That's why gratitude is very important for us as practicing devotees. So now, now his quality of humility is coming. He said he was worried that maybe I'll become proud because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cured me now. Like that, I'll think I'll become proud, like that. Then when he expressed that, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives wonderful formula. What does he say? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised him to chant the Hare Krishna mantra incessantly. That way, he would never become officially, not necessarily proud. So this is a nice instruction for us also. That if you chant Hare Krishna mantra as much as possible, of course, we may not be able to chant 24 hours a day because we have so many services to do, whether it's taking care of family, taking care of office work, whatever is needed. But we can at least remember Krishna during those times and then chant as much as possible or read or hear holy name, like that. Holy name and Krishna's pastimes, like that. So that's what he's recommending. When we're chanting like that, when we're associating with Krishna regularly, we don't become proud because we'll develop good qualities like humility. Humility is opposite of being proud. So that's what he's describing here nicely. Now, next verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also advised Vasudeva to preach about Krishna and thus liberate all living entities. So yeah, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made two requests. One is to chant the Hare Krishna mantra incessantly, as continuously as possible. Second is to preach the message of Krishna. As a result, he says, by preaching, Krishna would very soon accept him as his devotee, like that. If somebody preaches Krishna message like that, then Krishna will recognize us and accept us as his devotee. This is very important point. Prabhupada writes the purport also. In the purport, Prabhupada makes a couple of main points. One is that if you notice, only request Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed in return for his favor is to chant the holy name and preach the message to others. So Prabhupada is saying that is also the mission of ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So if one wants to be recognized as a devotee by Krishna, you should take to preaching work, following the advice of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is a very important principle for us. Lord Sri Prabhupada was known to say that you hear 2 sentences and you speak 2 sentences like that. That means we don't need to learn the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam, learn the whole of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, learn the whole of Bhagavad Gita, learn all the Acharya's commentaries before we start preaching. Whatever we learn today, we can share with someone else like that. It can be tempered based on the dose. We'll see today another important principle also, how we need to choose a like-minded devotee association like that. So, but if you're preaching, we need to give them appropriate dose, not too much. We cannot give Bhagavatam class to somebody who's just starting Krishna consciousness. So we need to see the appropriate dose and share with the message with them like that. That's the point. And preaching doesn't mean only sharing messages also. Preaching also means giving prasadam, giving a book, for example, which is Krishna's message, telling them about temple, helping them to come to temple, or helping somebody come to devotee association, helping somebody, arranging somebody to have devotee association. They don't need to be near us. We can just tell them, oh, you're in Dallas, Texas. I know this devotee there. Maybe he can help you to connect to Bhakti Rusha like that. Like that, we can do whatever little we can in our capacity. That's about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asking us to preach. Now, next verse. After instructing Vasudeva Vipra like that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disappeared from that place. Is described. Then both Kurma Brahmana and Vasudeva were crying, remembering the qualities of transcendental qualities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then, this is concluding. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is concluding this chapter. He's saying, I described how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reclaimed the leper Vasudeva and so received the name Vasudeva Amrita Pada. This is one of the name that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when he composed the glorification of Lord Chaitanya, he used this name, it seems. So he's saying, thus I entered the beginning of the tour of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is visiting of the temple of Kurma and liberating the Vasudeva. So basically summarizing the whole chapter in this verse, basically. How Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started the South India tour, how he met the Kurma Brahmana at the Kurma temple, and then how he delivered the Vasudeva leper. Then he's saying, whoever hears the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what is the benefit of hearing all these pastimes? If we hear with great faith, very soon we can attain the lotus feet of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What else we need? That's what is the glories of Krishna Katha, Chaitanya Katha, like that. So, and again, this is the humble mood of the other. He's saying, I admit that I do not know the beginning and at the end of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, like that is the same. Yeah, that's the point. And then next, no purport here. Next verse, and see, is again his humility. Author is saying, please do not consider any offenses in this regard, my dear devotees, like that he's saying. And he's saying, your lotus feet are my only shelter. So that is the nature of humility of the other. And is praying to the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Goswami, who were his gurus, basically, Siksha gurus. And always desiring their mercy, is narrating Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's how the chapter ends. Go to the next chapter, is another beautiful chapter. Remember, a couple of chapters ago, we were discussing the conversation between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. At that time, I mentioned there are 5 main conversations between Lord Chaitanya and the devotees that our Srila Prabhupada chose to write in the book called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, in that book, that has the condensed teachings. So this is the second set of instructions. First instructions are with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Second one we are hearing is from Ramana, with Ramananda Rai. This is a beautiful section. Out of whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, the 9 books, you can imagine 5 conversations if you pick, they're very important. This is one of them. So initially it starts with storyline, then later it goes to the philosophy portion. So we'll go to the storyline today only. We don't get to the philosophy section, nothing much. So basically, remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, context is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going on South India tour. He went to Kurmakshetra and then he went to Vasudeva Brahmana like that. He's traveling like that in South India still. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is described interestingly with analogy here in this verse as the ocean of all conclusive knowledge. Ocean means lot of water, right? In this case, is ocean of knowledge, it seems. Ocean of all conclusive knowledge in devotion service. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is compared as ocean. And then Sri Ramananda Rai is considered as a cloud of devotional service. Remember, cloud takes the water, sun takes the water from the ocean and sea, evaporates and they become cloud. The essence of the ocean and sea is in the cloud. Similarly, the conclusion of knowledge of bhakti that is there in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the cloud. That means it is in Ramananda Rai. Ramananda Rai is like that, with Ramananda Rai. So, and so Ramananda Rai was empowered by the ocean, that means by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to spread the conclusions of devotion service. So that's what is describing here. There's no purport here. Go to the next verse. This is a standard verse where he glorifies Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, and all the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is what we recite before starting. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, like that. So going to the next verse. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued his South India tour, and after some days, he arrived at the place of pilgrimage known as Jiyad Narasimha. In the purport, Prabhupada purport, it clearly clarifies that this is the same place as Simhachalam. Simhachalam is a place in Andhra Pradesh, next to Visakhapatnam or Vizag city or town, I don't know what they call it, Visakhapatnam. Just 5 miles away, Prabhupada is writing. It's on top of the hill. It's a nice holy place. Is maintained by Sri Vaishnavas today. They do deity worship nicely in the Simachalam, and they do celebrate festivals also nicely there. So it's a nice place. Text 3. And then next text 4. He says, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the deity of Lord Narasimha in the temple, he offered his obeisances by falling flat. That means by Dandavat Pranam he offered. Then in ecstatic love, he performed various dances, chanted and offered prayers, it seems. Oh, I remember, actually this Jiyad Narasimha form in Simachalam is considered a form of Lord. I remember recently we were celebrating Narasimha Chaturdashi, and Prahlad was thrown from the top of the hill also, so that he, in the attempts of killing him by his father Hiranyakashipu. So that time, at the last moment, Narasimhadev in this form of Jiyad Narasimha comes and holds Prahlad Maharaj safely, it seems. That the past time described in Simachalam also. So then, let me see the purport. Oh, text by as a purport. Okay. So then he's saying all glories to. Now, next couple of verses are the verses that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is reciting. So what does it recite? Sri Narasimha, Jai Narasimha, Jai Jai Narasimha, Prahladesha, Jaya Padma, Mukha Padma Bringa. This is the verse many devotees sing also regularly. So that's what is meaning. All glories to Lord Narasimhadev, who is the Lord of Prahlad Maharaj, and like a honeybee, is always engaged in beholding the lotus-like face of Goddess of Fortune. Prabhupada writes a nice purport for this verse. Basically, Sri Prabhupada is quoting commentary from Srila Sridhar Swami. He was even before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time. So he is saying the whole Lord Narasimhadev was always embracing Mother Lakshmi Devi, Goddess of Fortune, like that he describes in reference to one 10th canto verse and another first canto verse also like that. And then he's also always enlightening Prahlad Maharaj within his heart, and he always kills the nations that attacks the devotees. So Prahlad Narasimhadev removes darkness or nations from our hearts like that, and he gives pleasure to few devotees like Prahlad Maharaj nicely like that. Then next verse, although Narasimhadev is in ferocious form, like the lioness means lady lion, right? Mother lion, is very kind to her cubs. Similarly, although very ferocious to non-devotees like Hiranyakashipu, Lord Narasimhadev is very, very soft and kind to devotees like Prahlad Maharaj. I was listening to one of the classes briefly. My wife was listening to it, so I heard a little bit. So essentially, His Holiness Indra Maharaj was talking about this point also, that how Lord Narasimhadev was so angry with Hiranyakashipu because he is not is going against his devotee like that. But then at the same time, he was so kind and sweet, is described like that to Prahlad Maharaj. In fact, like a lioness licks her baby cubs like that, Narasimhadev was licking Prahlad Maharaj, it seems, at that time. That is a wonderful nature of our Supreme Lord, who takes care of his devotees nicely like that. That's what is described here. And another point Radheshyam Prabhu was discussing the other day, I think on Thursday, Narasimha Chaturdashi day, was telling that how Prahlad Maharaj did not become fearful, whereas demigods also got fearful a little bit of Narasimhadev. Why is that? Because Prahlad Maharaj was situated in pure devotion service. In pure devotion, there is no fear. Whereas if we have mixture of some devotion, some enjoyment tendencies, then we'll have fear like that. That's the other point Radheshyam Prabhu was discussing. Going to 7th verse. In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set at different verses, it seems, from the Shastra. And after that, so this is another example for us. Commonly we hear what kind of prayer we should offer to the Lord like that. Generally, the answer is twofold. One is we should offer standard prayers as much as possible to Supreme Lord, and we should also offer our personal prayer also. But our personal prayer should be modeled after the standard prayers, so that they're in a similar mode like that. Not necessarily imitating the higher authorities or acharyas like that, but in the same accordance with our philosophy that we're learning like that. That's the point. So that's what, and then the Brahmana priest of the Narasimhadev deity, he gave him Maha garlands and also Mahaprasadam and gave it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it seems. And then one Brahmana invited him for prasadam. He had prasadam, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed back in the temple at night time, and then he went back on the South India tour again like that. So next morning, in great ecstasy of love again, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started on his tour. Because of his ecstatic mood, he could not figure out he's going this direction, correct direction, or a different direction like that. So like that, it happened many times in the South India tour is described. And then while he was going like that on tour, he converted many people to Vaishnavas like that. After some days, he finally reached Godavari river bank. And then that time when he saw Godavari river, he thought it is Yamuna river, because Lord Chaitanya, everything reminds him of Vrindavan. And then when he saw forest on the banks of the river, he remembered Vrindavan Dham, it seems. So then he did his chanting and dancing for some time in that forest. And then he crossed the river and took his bath on the other bank. And then he walked, he engaged in chanting the holy name of Krishna again. Basically, throughout his travel, is chanting the holy name, basically. And then at that time, the introduction of Ramananda Rai comes, because he was the governor of that area for the king in that area. So he was coming with all the band, basically, sounds of music. And he came on a palanquin to take his bath, it seems. That time, many Brahmanas also followed him. And according to Vedic rituals, Ramananda took bath and offered oblations to his forefathers. So now, next week, tomorrow's session, we'll see how their meeting, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai, how they met each other so intimately, like-minded devotees association importance, like that we'll discuss again. Yeah. So this is the introduction of Ramananda Rai today, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's South India tour continuing like that. We'll pause here. We'll continue again tomorrow. Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita ki jai, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. It's offer business to all the devotees of the Lord. Vancha kalpatarubhescha kupasindubhyevacha paitana pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. There will be a Bhagavad Gita session now. If any of you are interested, you can stay back if you have time, if you're able to manage your services accordingly. So otherwise,